Frederick Valentich was a 20-year-old Australian pilot who disappeared on October 21, 1978, during a solo flight over the Bass Strait in a Cessna 182L light aircraft. It reported to Melbourne Air Traffic Control that he was being accompanied by an unknown aircraft with 4 bright lights, which he described as behaving erratically. His final transmission included a statement about the object hovering and not being an aircraft. After a brief metallic noise that we'll listen to, radio contact was lost. Extensive searches found no trace of Valentich or his aircraft. His disappearance remains unsolved. We'll look through the accident investigation report. Thanks for being here. Please hit the like button if you do like this content and consider subscribing. Chris Lehto, welcome to LehtoFiles. Frederick Valentich was 20 years old at the time of his disappearance. He was an enthusiastic and determined young man with aspirations to become a commercial pilot. He also had significant interest in UFOs and had reportedly read numerous articles and books on the subject. Valentich had about 150 hours of flying experience, which is relatively low compared to commercial pilots. He held a private pilot's license and was certified to fly at night, but not in the clouds. So VMC only, visual meteorological condition, which it was that night. So it wasn't IMC, it wasn't instruments required. He was a member of the Royal Australian Air Force Air Training Corps and had twice applied to enlist in the RAF, but was rejected due to inadequate education qualifications. From what I could tell, it sounds like he failed his entrance exams. So he worked as a shop assistant and was studying part-time to improve his qualifications and try and gain hours. So on October 21, 1978, Valentich rented a Cessna 182L aircraft similar to this one for a training flight from Moorabbin Airfield down to King Island. The weather conditions were favorable and the flight plan was straightforward. Okay, this is from November 1978, Flight International, Cessna downed by UFO. A full-scale air and sea search was mounted from Melbourne last week for a Cessna 182, which disappeared after its pilot said he had been buzzed by an unidentified object. Flying instructor, ? I don't think he was a flying instructor. Frederick Valentich was flying alone over the Bass Strait when he told Melbourne Air Traffic that he saw an object with 4 bright lights. It initially passed about 1,000 feet above him, he said, at a speed he could not estimate. Valentich was at 4,500 feet, and no other aircraft were reported in the vicinity. He later said he was orbiting, and that the object, with a green light and sort of metallic light on the outside, was orbiting above him. Shortly afterwards, he reported his engine was rough running, and said he was proceeding to King Island with the unknown aircraft still hovering over him. After what was described as a metallic noise on his transmission, radio contact was lost. An oil slick was later reported in the area, but was thought to be too widespread to have come from a light aircraft. So at 17:25 hours on 21 October 1978, the pilot of Victor Hotel Delta Sierra Juliet, he calls his call sign Delta Sierra Juliet, lodged a flight plan at Moorabbin briefing office for a private night VMC flight, so in visual meteorological conditions, meaning you can't fly into the clouds, below 5,000 feet to King Island via Cape Otway and return Moorabbin. When you file flight plans, right, you get flight following, so they're making sure you're there, they're keeping track of you and still clearing for your flight. You're still in radio contact. So you tell him where to go. It says he's going to go to this Cape Otway, so right at the tip of Australia here, and then he's going to proceed across the Bass Strait to King Island. But he didn't make it, right? So here is the aircraft accident investigation summary report. So the pilot obtained a Class 4 instrument rating on 11 May 1978, and he was therefore authorized to operate at night in VMC. So he did have some instrument training. So instrument rating means you've had training in spatial disorientation, you've had training in human factors of pilots, you know all the systems, you know how to use backup systems in the case of any sort of emergencies. So he was authorized to fly at night as long as he's not in the clouds. So he submitted his flight plan in VMC. The cruising altitude was below 5,000 feet, so pretty low. This is why he wasn't tracked on radar. So radar's not going to see much below 5,000 feet, really, just due to the curvature of the Earth. You have to have line of sight with the radar. So below 5,000 feet, very difficult, even for radars today, to see aircraft. He had estimated time intervals of 41 minutes to Cape Otway, so right to the end, the tip there, and then 28 minutes from Cape Otway to King Island. So it's during that 28-minute section when he's flying over the water, really, that he disappears. Total fuel endurance was shown as 300 minutes, so he had tons of fuel, and according to the accident investigation, it was fully fueled. The pilot made no arrangements for aerodrome lighting to be illuminated for his arrival at King Island. So I was kind of curious on that, and this is one of the debunking arguments, is that he never planned to arrive there, right? He staged his own demise. And one of the arguments is that he didn't plan to have aerodrome lighting to be illuminated for his arrival at King Island. So you can just click. You do like 3 clicks on the radio, as long as you're on the right frequency, and the lights will come on. But you'll definitely need aerodrome lighting at your arrival. But again, from what I remember, is you click 3 times to get lights on, and you click 4 times to get light off. So that's how you could turn on and off the lights. I'm not sure if that is the case. I couldn't tell from the accident investigation report. So another issue is he advised the briefing officer and the operator's representative that he was picking up friends at King Island and took 4 life jackets in the aircraft with him. I saw later in the report he also said he's picking up crayfish. And they said supposedly both of those are untrue, not correct. So it sounds like they didn't actually have 4 friends there that he was going to be picking up. So that's interesting. Why would you tell someone you're meeting friends and then not? So here, yeah, it's refueled to capacity, so he had enough fuel. And he established 2-way radio communications with Melbourne Flight Service Unit. So basically, wherever you're flying, even though you're not under IMC control, right? They're not actually telling you what altitude, where to go, what direction, etc. You're in VMC conditions below 5,000 feet. So all they're doing is making sure you're safe and following you along, right, in case something like this happens. Okay, so he passes Cape Otway at 1900 hours, and the next transmission was at 1906. And this is the following communications between the aircraft and Melbourne Flight Service Unit. Okay, so Delta Sierra Juliet, this is him, and that's the Flight Service Unit, FSU. So Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000? FSU comes back. Delta Sierra Juliet, no known traffic. Now Valentich, Delta Sierra Juliet. Seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000 feet. So I am visual. Seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000 feet. Kind of improper comm there. Delta Sierra Juliet, what type of aircraft is it? Delta Sierra Juliet, I cannot affirm. It is 4 bright, it seems to me, like landing lights. Okay, so landing lights, a lot of pilots say this when it comes to UFO encounters. Landing lights are very bright, right? You can see them for many, many miles away, whereas your normal position lights, the green and red lights, are not that bright. It also seems like if it's a landing light, it's going to be a white light. Whereas in the sky, if you're looking at another aircraft, you're expecting to see green or red, right? To try and see which way it's going, which direction, try and get line of sight on the canopy. So we continue. FSU. Delta Sierra Juliet. Nothing. Valentich comes back. Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. The aircraft has just passed over me at least 1,000 feet above. 1,000 feet is very close in an air environment. If I had an aircraft pass over 1,000 feet, I would be nervous. Okay, if I didn't know who they were, which direction they're going, or what it was, that would make me extremely nervous. And he says at least 1,000 feet above. I'm wondering if it's less than 1,000 feet, would that cause a hazardous event, meaning it has to be recorded? Not sure why he says at least 1,000 feet. Must be further than that. Okay, FSU continues. Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger. And it is a large aircraft, confirm? Valentich comes back. Unknown due to the speed it's traveling. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity? So he says unknown how large it is due to the speed it's traveling. Did it go so fast over him he couldn't see how large it was? Sounds like the lights is kind of maybe all that he's seeing. Delta Sierra Juliet, no known aircraft in the vicinity. Melbourne, it's approaching now from due east towards me. Delta Sierra Juliet, open microphone for 2 seconds. Valentich comes back. Delta Sierra Juliet, it seems to me that he's playing some sort of game. He's flying over me 2 to 3 times at a time at speeds I cannot identify. Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger, what is your actual level? So what's your actual altitude? My level is 4,500, 4500. So he's at 4,500 feet. When you're flying visual meteorological conditions, you fly in between the altitudes. So 4,500 feet, he's right on the correct altitude. At least he says he is. That he should be flying. Flight service continues. Delta Sierra Juliet, and confirm you cannot identify the aircraft. Affirmative, he says. FSU comes back. Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger, stand by. Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. It's not an aircraft. It is... open microphone for 2 seconds, so he doesn't say what it is. So they ask, Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne, can you describe the aircraft? Valentich comes back. Delta Sierra Juliet, as it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify more than that. It's such a speed. Open microphone for 3 seconds. Before me right now, Melbourne. Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger, and how large would the object be? Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. It seems like it's stationary. What I'm doing right now is orbiting, and the thing is just orbiting on top of me. Also, it's got a green light and sort of metallic. It's all shiny on the outside. So he basically describes what would be a UFO, right? It's got a green light and sort of metallic. I wanted to look at the time frame here, because in order to orbit, it takes 2 minutes really to do a full 360. Let's see how it's flying past. It's a long shape. That was at 1909.52. And so 30 seconds later, he says he's orbiting. So he's basically doing a level turn. And this is where people can get disoriented, right? If you're in a turn now, especially if you're in a level, consistent turn, your otolith organs, the little hairs in your ear, can actually get disoriented. This is a great setup to actually get spatially disoriented. FSU says, Delta Sierra Juliet, and then nothing. Valentich comes back. Delta Sierra Juliet, open microphone for 5 seconds. It's just vanished. FSU says again, Delta Sierra Juliet, nothing back. Now from Valentich, Melbourne, would you know what kind of aircraft I got? Is it a type of military aircraft? They come back. Delta Sierra Juliet, confirm the aircraft just vanished. Say again, Valentich says. Delta Sierra Juliet, is the aircraft still with you? Delta Sierra Juliet, it's now approaching from the southwest. So maybe he had to look down and see what direction he's at. So it seems like he's still probably in an orbit. Delta Sierra Juliet, no response. Valentich says, Delta Sierra Juliet, the engine is rough idling. I've got it set at 23, 24, and the thing is coughing. Okay, so rough idling. He's down low. He has plenty of fuel. Why would it be rough idling? There was a debunking argument that maybe he thought he was flying upside down, where he's confused here, and he's actually in a graveyard death spiral, right? They don't have him on radar. And at this point, he's actually flying upside down, and that's why it's rough idling. But this aircraft actually can't fly upside down for very long, right? Probably 10 seconds, I would guess. Maybe 30 at the maximum. Because these fuel systems are gravity feeding. So it seems like he's still orbiting, would be my guess here. But he's having engine problems. And this is when you can really get into trouble if you're in a constant turn and you're dealing with malfunctions and you're looking down, then your otolith organs, right, the organs that keep your orientation, can really get messed up, especially if you're in a constant turn and now you're moving your head around different directions. I don't know how much time he would have had, how much experience he would have had in training for instrument conditions. Didn't sound like much, right? He can't fly into clouds at night. Could he fly into clouds during the day? My guess is not. But he did have instrument rating, maybe just for night flight. FSU asks him now, Delta Sierra Juliet, Roger, what are your intentions? He comes back. My intentions are to go to King Island, Melbourne. The strange aircraft is hovering on top of me again. 2 seconds, open microphone. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft. FSU, Delta Sierra Juliet. And let's hear his last transmission from Valentich. Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. And then 17 seconds of open microphone. There's no record of any further transmissions from the aircraft. We'll listen to that last 17 seconds here in a second. The weather in the Cape Otway area was clear with a trace of stratocumulus cloud at 5,000 to 7,000 feet, scattered cirrus cloud at 30,000 feet, excellent visibility and light winds. The end of daylight at Cape Otway was at 1918 hours. So stratocumulus cloud is light cumulus 5 to 7,000 feet. A trace, though, that's funny. So very light clouds, it seems like, above him. Otherwise, it's excellent visibility, light winds, and there was still some daylight out there. Okay, so still light over the horizon. It's not completely black. He should have been able to see the ground reasonably well. Although maybe over the water, you could still get disoriented. The alert phase of search and rescue procedures was declared at 1912 hours and 1933 hours when the aircraft did not arrive at King Island. The distress phase was declared and search action was commenced. An intensive air, sea, and land search was continued until 25 October 1978, but no trace of the aircraft was found. There was an oil slick, but then determined that it was too large of an oil slick for a plane. The reason for the disappearance of the aircraft has not been determined, and it still hasn't been determined. And 5 years later, apparently small parts of a Cessna 182 washed up on shore, and the actual serial number did fall within the range of serial number that could have been Valentich's aircraft. So that's the only wreckage that could have possibly ever been found, although it's still not confirmed that it is the actual wreckage. Okay, this is from a presentation on Izon Cinema. He actually found the audio version of it, so we'll just listen to the last 17 seconds so you can hear that metallic crashing noises. Let's listen to that. So that was it. You could hear there, Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. And that was it for Frederick Valentich, unfortunately. So one debunking argument is that he got disoriented. He thought that the lights were somehow Venus, other planets. And that's why he's looking outside, looking up, and gets disoriented. And that's how he actually crashes. So you can get disoriented if you're in a constant turn, constant bank like that. The hairs in your otolith organ, due to gravity, think that you are straight and level. And then when you do try and roll out of a bank like that, of a turn, then it's quite easy to get into a graveyard spiral, basically be spatially disoriented. It's killed many, many pilots over the years. But I honestly don't see how he could get confused by stationary objects that are above him. You know, this seems like moving objects flying over his head at least 1,000 feet above him means that it is close. 1,000 feet is not far away. So that doesn't make sense to me that he got disoriented looking at the planets and then crashed. The better debunking argument is that he planned this for some reason. His girlfriend said 6 days before that he thought he could be taken by UFOs. He was reading all about UFOs. He was interested in it. But apparently his family didn't think he would go and do this sort of stunt, this trick. Also, the reasons for why he went down there, obviously training mission. Was he going to pick up friends? Was he going to pick up prey fish? did those just change? And why would you make that statement? Right? Why would you say that to people if your plan is not to do that? Your plan is actually to go and fake your death or disappearance due to a UFO. So I would lean towards it's either a real UFO event or he faked it for some unknown reason that still doesn't make sense and would be a big surprise to his father and family, it sounds like. There's a reason this has been an unexplained event for so many years. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button. It really helps and it's free. Consider subscribing to get future notifications of when I release videos. And you might like this video. If you want to support the channel, join these great people over here, get exclusive bonus content, then click this button here, patreon.com/chrislehto, or become a YouTube member. If you want to continue the discussion, go to UAP Society Discord. Links are all in the description. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.